always tremendously generous with his time, with his advice, with his ideas. He's also hooked in here with San Leandro and has just been a tremendous resource in this entire field. Gordon was working with Cisco for a number of years as their Director of Urban Innovation, which I just think is the greatest thing in the world, to have that position at Cisco and the platform that he was able to have. And through the Meeting of Minds and his other work, has assembled a top global community around the Meeting of the Minds brand for all of the utilities, government leaders, entrepreneurs, tech companies, etc., that are actually in a position to bring the elements together like we tried to do yesterday, to really move the ball, move the needle on things related to the environment, related to technology, related to economic development, all the things that need to happen that you all address through your workshops. So with that, I'll hand it over to Gordon, and I would also love to hear if Gordon has any comments about what he just heard from our workshops.
So first, Greg and James and the whole UIX team, congratulations on getting the program to this lunchtime and then the afternoon workshop in the city. Congratulations, really. I know how much this takes out of you, and really good to hear the 4 workshop descriptions and the summaries. So my assignment from Greg was to do that. Smart Cities and Sustainable Economic Development, that title at the top. And I thought it would be interesting to spend a little bit of time laying out some of the things that I've learned, both at Cisco and Meeting of the Minds, as well as a network of organizations like UIX that I've been partnered with. So, starting with the what ifs. In this case, being able to take the reality check, which is that all of the costs for accelerating sustainable, resilient economic development in cities, all of the technology-related costs are moving to zero. Not good news for the enterprises like Cisco that depend on, high prices for things like compute, or high prices for things like digital infrastructure, or high prices for things like bandwidth. So this is the beautiful news of the moment, is that the costs are moving to zero. And thus, the only obstacles that we have are not technological or financial, they're political, organizational, social, which I think is pretty good news. Now, some people think the only way to get to the Internet of Everything and maximize and leverage the potential of all of those connected objects is to be able to get the human beings out of the way. And this is sort of a funny, not so funny joke in Silicon Valley that the world would be perfect if there were only no human beings because the technology is so amazing. I obviously think this group, us here, we think the flip side is true, that the human beings are at the center of the universe and the technology is in the service of. So, can we take advantage, not the way that the DDoS attack did 2 weeks ago, using these kinds of smart objects as channels for disruption in the negative sense, but channels for disruption in the positive sense. And my judgment is that we now have the essential infrastructure in place. San Leandro and San Leandro are examples of the fact that it really is not the future to have this infrastructure. It's now. It's enabled. It's relatively affordable and getting more affordable every day. And it's enabling this incredible explosion that we're seeing our lives changed by these, what I guess in Silicon Valley are called customer-facing solutions, namely the applications at the top of the technology stack. I spent yesterday with Rambus, who are at the bottom of the technology stack, building the silicon. We can talk about what those companies are doing. But I want to talk more about what's the potential to create not just new endpoints on the network, these objects that are amazing, but to serve that group at the end, the last slide there, who are essentially the 2 billion people in the world that are really not benefiting from the technology evolution yet. And those folks are in the cities we live in, not just in Asia and Africa and Latin America. So, What questions do we ask? This is, of course, something like a mantra that we have to have every morning. Are we asking the right questions? Because the world around us is evolving pretty rapidly, so every morning, what questions should we be asking? Some of them, for cities, are really obvious. Like, why do we have traffic? And can we go beyond, this is a scene, I think, in Delhi that I happened to pick out. Can we get beyond parking as we know it today? Can we dramatically transform with simple endpoints like that smart object sensor the whole experience of moving around the city and parking a car? And of course, parking may be gone as we know it when autonomous vehicles are moving us around and then disappearing when we don't need them. So we think that, even if these numbers are off by 50%, it's a pretty remarkable set of numbers. And we think that the end of traffic is near, as is the end of traffic-related consequences, whether it's pedestrian injury and death, whether it's pollution, whether it's wasted resources, whether it's wasted time, whether it's city intelligence directed at a traffic problem when it could be directed at all sorts of other amazing things that we want to accomplish. So we think that if you take, and we did some economic analysis around this that was pretty rigorous, if we take all of that lost opportunity and lost revenue and lost productivity and we got it back, right? So cost savings, new efficiencies, as well as new revenue in transportation, just urban transportation. That's what we would call the value at stake. That's a really big number that we could achieve in the near term. Imagine if we freed up those resources. Because transportation and energy are now roughly equal in the world in terms of climate changing impacts. So all of the systems of the city, like the metabolic systems that move stuff, whether it's inputs, energy, water, goods, and people flowing into the city, or the stuff that we call garbage now, moving out of the city. We're not doing a very good job, and there are some simple, low-hanging fruit kinds of things to make intelligent systems out of the dumb things like waste bins. We did this in Barcelona with a couple of partners when we took on the Barcelona project. I'll tell about in a minute. And it's true, transport, waste streams, or let's call them resource streams in the city, water flows being one of those. So we think that it's not just about lower cost, because those lights that are on when there's no traffic is an obvious low-hanging fruit where we can gain revenue back that belongs to the citizens because they're the taxpayers more than the companies and cities. Tax-paying revenue is mostly from citizens themselves, whether in their transactions through VAT and sales tax, or through their income tax or their property tax. So we want to move to use when necessary. Simple stuff. Hard to do, even with LEDs, because we're in a world in which it's not the technology, it's not even the finance, it's the human and organizational reality. So we have all these silos in our cities because these organizations are all protecting their data and protecting their purpose, protecting their head count, protecting their budget. And so we want to cut through those silos without being so threatening that they are organized resistance in the underground guerrilla tactics, which bureaucracies do an extremely good job of protecting their turf when they feel threatened. So cutting across this fragmented approach is not going to be easy, and we tried this in an experiment in Barcelona. I'll tell you, the good news is we succeed wildly. The bad news is when the new mayor came in, it all went kaput. So one of the fundamental realities in the political, institutional, organizational realm, the challenges, is leadership is fundamental, and if the leader says, I don't like it because the last leader was doing this and it's associated with him, and I'm now in and I'm going to do my own thing, and even if it means good stuff goes by the wayside, so be it, because I've got to have my own way of doing things. So we built for Barcelona and a whole bunch of other cities that we can talk about, different lessons, different places, different times, but roughly in the last 5 years we've done this in about 25 megacities. I put Barcelona in that category because of the number of visitors that they have. And whatever the platform, the city as a whole, or a particular hospital, or a highway system, or a particular factory, We use all of the advantages that platforms and clouds provide us, and we, in engineering terms, optimize the network, and we optimize the organization, and we optimize their existing capacity, wired networks, wireless networks, data center, all of that stuff. And we can go into detail when we get into the Q&A about this. But my point is that we could create, and we are in fact creating, present tense, a new kind of industry, which is, let's call it the urban services industry, to provide cities with ready-made solutions so that Greg and James and UIX team can go in and help a city build in a box a chief innovation officer and the whole program associated with breaking down silos, bringing in and integrating new technologies and transforming the process. Because I will say this about where we are. You know, the Internet of Everything, and I'm just using these as examples from London, of the project that we did with the Gherkin building there. We wanted to be able to have as many of these places showcasing the innovations from third parties and often cases local companies to show off what we could do. And here are just the numbers that we were able to achieve in Barcelona. The laser is not working. So what we saw was a pretty remarkable, quantitatively measurable, positive benefit in the realm of outcomes that could become the political force behind the momentum if the mayor was ready, willing, and able to keep with the program. None of that stuff that was gained will go away, but the additional gains maybe were delayed. So when we looked at how you create a truly smart and connected city, obviously the citizen has to be at the center of the whole thing. And we thought that rather than it being thing-centric, right, Internet of Things, that it would be better to talk about the Internet of Everything, because we're in this period, of course, where we're past the first phase in the 90s and the 80s of internet connections. We're past the second phase, which was essentially the e-commerce boom of the 80s, 90s. We're past the third phase of the early part of this century and millennium, the OOs, for immersive experience and social media. We're now in this phase. And we like to say that it's things at the bottom, and then the data streaming from those things, and then the process that's being transformed, like I need a parking spot, I find a parking spot, I pay for a parking spot, and the system knows that space is full. That's a changed business process from I wander around with quarters in my pocket to try to figure out where is a place that has a working parking meter, because if it's not working, I'll probably get a ticket. So ultimately, the end point at the top of the stack is transforming the people experience of living and working and playing and learning in the city. So all of these transformed businesses have leading companies that have helped transform those businesses, and that changes the commerce of the city. But does it change the business process of the city? I say not yet. And so that's why we want to talk about a transformation of urban services. Now, if we talk about the Internet of Everything as a whole, because we did this economic analysis of how much trapped potential in the global economy is there to be released, either by these incredible savings and efficiencies and productivity gains or the new revenue potential. And that was the big number that we found. That was over the next 10 years. If we did all the things that we need to do in those 5 categories, utilizing our underutilized assets, like parking spaces, like vehicles, like people. So, pace of change, really, really fast for cities. And of course, it's shaking the ground underneath the feet of elected and appointed officials. We had some mayors with us when Greg was joining us at Meeting of the Minds this week. Mayor of Anchorage, for instance, who came in, told me that he just can't get his arms around how big this is in terms of the change that's afoot for the city. And they're in an earthquake zone, so he didn't want to make too many jokes about the rocky state of affairs underneath his feet. But they're trying as fast as they can to capture the value from the low-hanging fruit. And these are some of the areas that we're hearing from cities. None of this is a surprise. But in each case, and we can dig through it as we go through Q&A, there's a lot of opportunity, but we in Silicon Valley tend to get fixated on the technology as the end. Because engineers are, much more comfortable dealing with bright shiny objects than bright shiny people, because it's messy stuff dealing with people. Relationships are not easy, and so a machine will follow your orders. Your wife or your husband or your mate will not necessarily follow your orders, and so let's work upon the machine problem. And machine learning is very cool, but it has to be in the service of people. So we think that probably, if I had to predict in the next 5 years where the big spending is going to be, it's in these categories. We're seeing it already in transportation. So the taxi market in San Francisco, before Uber showed up, was about $250 million a year. Now, the taxi plus Uber market is $1 billion. So they either took $750 million of market away from other things, like I'm going to walk, or I'm going to public transit myself, or I'm going to take, whatever other means of transportation. I'm going to pay my buddy a gas reimbursement. So there is new wealth being created, but there's also new value beyond the dollar sign being created. So the value proposition for cities, we think, is pretty obvious, and I just skipped over that for some reason. And there's benefits for the city as an organism, and there's benefits for the citizen. So these slides will be available, and that one doesn't seem to want to stay at all. So let's talk a little bit about the virtuous circle. We think that as cities get into this business, they're discovering, and not just elected officials, appointed officials, city agencies, but all the actors on the city stage, colleges and universities, K-12 school systems, public health institutions, private health institutions, enterprises and employers, labor unions. Everybody that's in that city system is discovering that being part of this can actually be part of a virtuous circle. You have to get into the circle in order to benefit, we think. So always the city says, which tech is most crucial? It's hard to say. It's very dependent on the particular city and their particular stage in the process. I happen to be biased toward the last one. And I'm thinking about what Ian has done with offsites, right? You've created, Ian, an ecosystem of players. The city is at the heart because they're the ones who have to post the opportunities. But real estate developers, those financiers behind the developers, insurers who are worried about their future as investors, builders and contractors and engineers and constructors and architects and planners and designers, they're all benefiting. That whole ecosystem around the city that owns the site is a really interesting proposition, and you're just enabling the ecosystem. You're providing services. You obviously put the person at the center of the management system because they're the ones who are clicking to know where the opportunity is and what. But it all depends on the intelligent network. If you didn't have the mobile network, you wouldn't be able to operate offsites. So we're trying at Meeting of the Minds to enable this conversation amongst and between city leaders of all stripes, colors, and sizes. We had 450 leaders in 25 countries come here this week, and it was pretty engaging. And here's the part two of what we learned. We learned from these cities that they want deep research, an opportunity for UIX to report about what's happened in San Leandro, because Deb doesn't have time, and Zip Power doesn't have time to really share the results of what they're doing, for instance, on microgrid. But UIX might be able to get time and money together to report to the wide world about all of the cool things that are happening, not in these well-known cities, but in a city that should be well-known like San Leandro. So we ask these questions whenever we work with a partner of Meeting of the Minds or a client, and we think the leadership piece is the most crucial. And we've become partners with something called the IoT Talent Consortium, the Internet of Things Talent Consortium. We just did a series of events with them, which are streamed on YouTube and are available to see. And it basically is, how do we get the talent we need for cities to do the things they need to do, because they can't compete effectively with tech companies in salary. There aren't many devs available to cities yet, because frankly, you get twice what you're earning outside the city as you do now, just to be very blunt about it.
That's the reality, but oh well. Somebody's got to do this hard work.
But you're going to get a new hip this way.
I'm going to get a new hip.
Yeah, likely also, Deb, you might get a plaque.
I might get a very nice.
No, there's
hopefully
actually.
it'll be a laser cut.
I saw the statue of you.
Oh, but everybody
Yeah, wasn't that where they put a statue of her already? I really thought it was you, and then Greg explained that
I'm not
it was
gonna
it was
argue with
Marco. It was Marco.
They glow the same.
You know, I don't think this is an obstacle that Smart City is defined differently in each place. My feeling is we're so early in this process that it's not a big deal. But we do need to know a little bit about what succeeds. How do we succeed in getting down the road and being able to have a roadmap that works in each city? And benchmark roadmaps of the kind that UIX are creating with and for the city of San Leandro and some other places are going to be crucial in this process. And this is kind of like that amazing eye chart. There will be a quiz, by the way, at 1 o'clock, so be prepared, because you will be asked by memory to replace all of these items with your own suggestions and reorder the chips on the imagery. So, look, I'm going to leave you with this thought. This is not a top-down model that we're talking about. This is not a top-down group, so I'm glad that I'm preaching to the choir about that. But the bottom-up approach and the top-down approach don't work on their own. They have to be together. And it's that push and pull that's going to enable this. Something new is needed. We don't quite have a word for it, but it's that certain spirit of a city that gets awakened and activated that makes it possible for big things to happen that look impossible. And that's what we call citizen leadership. Politicians can help provide a platform, but it's not just through voting on November 8th that this stuff occurs. It's the voting every day by your feet. How many people show up at the new statue and really, you know, say, wow, this is amazing for our city? That's a vote by action. That's almost as powerful as the one every 4 years.
Well, it's worth it to note that more people show up to that than show up to city council meetings.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
City council
And
meetings,
if we
exactly.
happen to have a human scale model for people to work with at the beginning of the city council meeting to say, I'm going to shape it the way that maybe the next statue would look, I mean, that meeting would be oversubscribed. Because hands-on, I've discovered in city council meetings where we say, let's sit on the floor and here are the pieces of the puzzle. Here's our budget, here's the neighborhood, here are the actors, we've got the hospital administration on the edge of this neighborhood and they have an impact on it. That kind of hands-on, let's change the way that the shape of things looks. So you'll get a chance to go through all of these slides. I want to move through it very rapidly because I want to open up to questions and conversations before we close at 1 o'clock. How's our time?
1 o'clock.
Oh, there we go. All right. So, quick couple of questions, and then we'll get ourselves out to the next thing. You're all digesting lunch.
No, Gordon, what is your experience? So, you know, San Leandro is a small city. That has in some ways enabled us to do this transformation. On the other hand, a lot of the transformation is taking place without most of the community engagement. So you've been able to take a look at models from Barcelona to San Leandro, right? So and everything in between. Where's the right place to start? I mean, I think that size kind of really matters in order to be able to make effective change, but I don't know. What has been your experience?
I think that the way you did it with OSI as a partner on a concrete project that was self-funding, that's very replicable. So there's a private company in your city that really wants things to happen. They have capabilities and money, usually a combination of both. They think their capabilities are much bigger than the money available, and so be it.
Right.
But that happens to be the perfect model. There was a problem, let's get connectivity. There was a solution, we can lay fiber. There was a budget, there was a partner who actually understood that business. In some cases it's true, in some cases it's not. And there was a city ready and willing and able to permit the whole thing and fast track it. And then there was the, okay, what do we do with it now? I probably would want to create use cases in the advance of it so that I pre-sold the capability so that the day that the dark fiber was laid, it got lit up. It's taken a while to light up all that. I would like to accelerate the time there.
Yes.
So you happen to pick a beautiful scenario that I think is applicable across the board. There's always a private company that's got some vision and frustration. There's always a city that needs something concrete. There's always citizen beneficiaries who, once they are educated about what a fiber network can do, will say, wow, I love this. And there are always young entrepreneurs who recognize that they need that. And in the case of high-speed connectivity, it's a no-brainer. So I think that actually turns out, whether you're big or small, old or new, fat or thin city, black or white city, whatever the color, flavor, shape, or size of your city, that public-private partnership is crucial, because then nobody feels like they're taking too much of the burden.
Perfect, thank you.
Do you know the Bilbao story?
Yeah, and so there you have, the city leaders, unappointed and unelected in many cases, realized that the city needed to dramatically pivot before we used that word to do what they were doing in the 80s. And they, went out and created a cultural district. They brought in Frank Gehry, and they created the Guggenheim there on the water, and they rejuvenated the whole waterfront around the river, and they, of course, used the Mondragon movement as an ally to bring in the co-ops that were then, and Bilbao is now the richest region in Europe.
But my understanding was, again, it was like a mayor champion and a private sector champion that maybe knew the Guggenheim organization.
And helped to fund a piece of the
Nobody ever heard of Bilbao.
Yep.
I just keep thinking about like a physical like system, like a physical thumbs up system, where because there's so much activity going on. Like naturally, citizens go downtown to shop. They go downtown to do things. They go downtown to do this and that. And so that's a natural social media channel. That's how I see it. So the question is, how do we actually track that and have it be approved by local PD systems, local city council, local mayor, understand that that's a value, and it can be anonymized. And just allow where people go, like literally where they naturally, physically gravitate to, and have physical sensors to actually track the location through things like Polidata, through the STIR program, and actually just like opt into a mobile thing where we can track you anonymously to where you go. Just so we know where people are headed, so we can use that to better stuff. So
the good news is some cities are doing this with some emerging technology that's very anonymized and very secure and protects privacy of the smartphone in the pocket.
And actually, we are too.
Really? Okay. All right. You guys need to talk to each other.
We should have a conversation.
I just want to continue on the Bilbao example. It's an awesome example. There were some wonderful art collectives there that I worked with recently that are now closed because of the wealth that came in, and they sided on property owners' side, and now they're losing the art.
Yep.
So having things in place that are long-term to ensure that the arts survive and thrive.
And there's a ballot initiative in San Francisco, as you know, for artist spaces that requires developers to replace those at the same rate as what they're taking out of the market.
Yeah, hopefully.
Just in no slight intended toward the San Leandro Lit program nor the Bilbao. In both of those cases cited, and this is just an observation, there were relationships in place. There were local people who had $1 billion on a fiber network, or somebody who was like, yeah, let me pick up the phone and call the folks over at the Guggenheim. There are 40,000 municipalities in this country. Cities, towns, townships, villages, boroughs, where I come from, the New England hamlets. Not everybody knows somebody at the Guggenheim. Not everybody knows somebody who can throw down some fiber and call it a public-private partnership. It's fabulous, but it's not scalable. What is scalable, I believe, is communication, so that cities can get on the map if they're not on the map, hopefully. And I don't put that out there. I mean, it's fantastic, and I would have invested in the P3 if I could have. But I think when we are sitting here in the Bay Area, and we know people who know people. There are hundreds of cities that would love to be able to create value add in their cities. Now, some of them, there isn't a real market. There just isn't a market that can provide for it. So how do you do it? There are two ways of increasing the revenue side on the city. One is you raise taxes in this country, and that's politically unpalatable, right? And especially at the local government level. The other one is you induce private sector investment. Those are the choices: to raise revenue, increase jobs, get statues. that come from revenues and jobs. So when you put up, Gordon, you put up your fourth to last slide, you sort of said, here are the 5 or 6 things. All of those were city-side costs that you can reduce: parking costs, infrastructure costs, utility costs. They're all city-side, publicly, funded cost side. And I'm very curious around how the cities that don't have those relationships induce the private sector investment that actually gets them turning.
The creation of that ecosystem, how does that happen?
All of those smaller than the cities that we talked about are in metro regions where the wealth can be, when you extract the inefficiency out of the system by, for instance, shifting the whole lighting strategy, the region can benefit. And those hamlets and villages that are not really capable of being a partner in a public-private partnership could be in a regional commons. Because we really shouldn't be talking about cities anymore. We need to be talking about regions. I'm looking for something that relates to this.
Amy Lou at the Brookings Institute did a fantastic thing, I want to say it was in Milwaukee, where they basically did a regional economic development plan where they basically made sure that cities were no longer in competition to attract the fees associated with development from one another. They were no longer chasing each other out of the room for the next Walmart, right? So it was a stop like eating your own tail thing. And it's so rare to see regional strategies that give everybody a fighting chance. It's usually the person who knows somebody over at the Brookings Institute or the Guggenheim that gets the shiny museum. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think if technology is scalable, it transcends word of mouth, or at least it induces the word of mouth. Maybe it builds those relationships.
Some of these things are going to be immediately applicable to other communities once they're developed and established and proven. That also can happen because you have solutions that are created for a community that is most activated around fixing a problem, and then they can just be adopted by another community wholesale. Like, I'm developing an app for ride sharing and carpooling, and I encountered another city. I built it for the Bay Area, but it's available, and I encountered another city that we're working on a way to roll it out to them, and they can just benefit from all the work that we did for the Bay Area. They don't have to do anything, and I think those sort of solutions will happen in a lot of cases. That we'll solve problems in the Bay Area where we're more technically inclined, and then start packaging, and other communities, not just the Bay Area, but other communities, and start packaging them up so that they're easily accessible by others. I mean, I think that can happen to a large degree.
Greg is giving us all the hook.
Yeah, also because it's about 10 after 1, and those of you that want to go to the Illuminate the Arts tour, I want to make sure we greenline that. And I know that this conversation has been going on for a long time, so please stick around. Nobody's going to chase you out. Gordon, do you speak at Meeting of the Minds?
I try.
Because, that's, if you want, I know people there. It's so great to hear sort of some of the summary ideas that come out of it. It's fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Gordon. So you're welcome to stick around and chat. I want to make sure that you have time to get to the city. You've got about 15 minutes, so if you rush and maybe hop on BART, you can get there. It's right by Powell.
Can you talk about what the Illuminate the Arts is? I wasn't here for it.
So Illuminate the Arts is the group that did the Bay Lights project. Ben Davis is the chief visionary there. He spoke with Mark Cochran. Amazing conversation yesterday. And they have an immersive experiential tour that is set up to explain their next project, which is called Light Rail, which is essentially very bad explanation. LED lights running up and down Market Street reflecting what's going on below ground with art and other things, with information, light. It's amazing. Again, thanks everybody for coming, really appreciate it. Please take a box sandwich with you. The food will not be wasted. We're going to take it to the local women's shelter, so don't feel obligated, but if you want to, please go ahead and take another box sandwich with you for dinner or something. And